I'd now like to invite from the European Commission Mr. John Ryan, who is the unit head of the Directorate General for Health and Consumer Protection. Please welcome.
Your Royal Highness, Vice Prime Minister, Regional Director, distinguished colleagues, I'm very pleased to represent Commissioner Dalli at this formal opening of the European Immunization Week. The European Commission is happy to support this initiative by the World Health Organization. This campaign is of particular importance to stress the value and success of immunization programs to control, eliminate, and even eradicate diseases. Immunization plays a key role to ensure the protection of our citizens and, as has already been mentioned, particularly of children. Immunization has proved itself to be one of the most efficient ways to protect their health. And yet, today, despite the excellent safety and efficacy of the vaccines available, we see that too many children are not vaccinated. As a result of this insufficient vaccination coverage, outbreaks of vaccine-preventable diseases reappear at all too regular intervals. In fact, as we speak, and has been mentioned, there are several outbreaks at the moment of in the EU member states of measles affecting large numbers of persons. And we know that there are many reasons why children are not getting vaccinated. Perhaps, in fact, vaccination campaigns are the victim of their own success. Some parents may lack awareness about vaccination, or perhaps they're not familiar anymore with the diseases which the vaccines prevent. Others, of course, may refuse vaccination on religious or on philosophical grounds. And others may have difficulty in accessing health care, such as immigrant populations, migrant groups, displaced populations, and the socially or economically disadvantaged. There is also the issue of healthcare professionals facing difficulties to ensure continuity of immunization schedules with children moving from one country to another. Not only is there a lack of commonly agreed guidance for healthcare professionals on how to adapt children to a different schedule, but the documentation on the vaccination schedule of a child may be in a foreign language or may even be missing. In order to better document the vaccination status of children, the European Commission will be working with the EU member states, the ECDC, the European Centre for Disease Prevention and Control, and the World Health Organization in order to develop some common elements for recording vaccination across the European Union. This is an issue encountered by many parents who have had practical difficulties when moving around Europe with children of an age where vaccination is a key issue. I should highlight here that the current Hungarian presidency of the European Council took the opportunity to seek a strengthened political commitment on childhood vaccination by drafting Council conclusions which we hope to see adopted at the next Health Council in June. While fully respecting the competence of the Member States in the delivery of health care, the Commission believes that there are many opportunities in the area of childhood immunization for enhanced cooperation and coordination at the EU level, working together with the WHO. And a couple of examples would be to develop commonly agreed guidelines and methodologies for reaching out to underserved populations such as the Roma population and also migrants, which is a big problem at the moment. Secondly, strengthening monitoring and assessing vaccination coverage and surveillance for vaccine-preventable diseases. Thirdly, providing support for communication campaigns aimed at increasing the awareness of the safety and efficacy of vaccines and the risks of the diseases that can be prevented by them. Providing multilingual information on vaccination in the EU for healthcare professionals and for the public. Developing guidelines for healthcare professionals on how to adapt children from one national schedule to another. And examining with the Member States, with the European Centre for Disease Prevention and Control, and with the WHO, how to better record vaccination of children so as to make schedules easier to follow. I believe that these are areas where the Commission, the Member States and the WHO can fruitfully work together. And let us remind ourselves that the aim is to eliminate vaccine preventable diseases, and this can only be achieved by reaching and maintaining high vaccination coverage across the whole population of the European Union. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Ryan. I would last like to welcome, a very big welcome to Professor Johan Giesecke from the European Centers for Disease Control and Prevention. Welcome.
Thank you. Your Royal Highness, Madam Vice Prime Minister, Regional Director, dear Zsuzsanna, ladies and gentlemen. Zsuzsanna Jakab was my boss until 1 year ago, so I find it difficult to be too formal with that. I'm pleased to represent the present director of the ECDC, Dr. Mark Sprenger, who couldn't be here today at this opening of the European Immunization Week. It's an important initiative by the WHO and it deserves all support. I will start with a few words about vaccination in general and then a bit about the EU challenges. Madame Onkelenks and John Ryan both said that vaccination is one of the most successful medical inventions. I would be even bolder and say that it is the most successful medical intervention that has been done. Nothing that doctors or nurses do compares to the public health effects of vaccination. Possibly something coming a little close is obstetrics, the thing that young women and their babies or both die at birth is also a great medical achievement, but the rest is mostly doesn't really show for public health. And like Her Royal Highness, Your Royal Highness pointed out, vaccines not only save lives, they also prevent lifelong disabilities, such as paralysis after polio, such as congenital malformation after rubella in the mother, and scars of smallpox, for example, disfiguring scars after smallpox. And as you all know, vaccines are unique in two ways. One is that my being vaccinated protects not only myself, but also people around me. And this is unique to vaccines. If I start a proper diet and start exercising regularly, that will lessen the risk of my getting heart disease, but it will not protect my neighbor from getting heart disease. That's one. Number two is that immunization is unique as a medical intervention. There is no other medical activity on this scale that is delivered to completely healthy people. This gives us a special responsibility to ascertain that side effects, and they accompany any medical intervention. Any medical intervention has side effects. That these side effects are as close to zero as is technically and scientifically possible. What does this mean for Europe and for the ECDC? Well, first let me state that the EU member states have great childhood immunization programs. They may differ from country to country and even within countries, but any child who is vaccinated according to the local program is well protected against a number of dangerous diseases, and that's true for all EU member states. The problem is not the different programs per se, but the fact, as has been pointed out repeatedly, that not all children are reached. And of course, as pointed out by Mr. Ryan, by the Commission, the different programs do create problems for families that move between EU countries with small children. I can still remember going to the United States for a 1-year sabbatical some 30 years ago with one 18-month-old child and one newborn, and the adjustments it took going there and coming back. It created quite a lot of problems for me and my wife. Secondly, the ECDC will do its utmost to support the member states in reaching the WHO elimination goal for measles and rubella. Thirdly, strong political commitment is needed to improve MMR coverage and to promote additional immunization activities. And on the technical side, we at ECDC, we are helping the member states to assess vaccine coverage in the member states. We are involved in setting up a system to rapidly measure the effectiveness of new vaccines, which has so far only been used for influenza, but there's a possibility to extend it. And not least important, we are partners in developing a system to rapidly evaluate signals about potential side effects, which, as you all have pointed out, is one of the bigger problems with the trust in vaccines. We also, and often in collaboration with WHO, regularly produce evidence-based evaluations of the public health benefits of new vaccines that the member states can use when these vaccines appear on the market, if they want to include them in their programs or not. And like Mr. Ryan mentioned, we're working with the Commission and WHO to develop some better record and registration of the vaccines that children have received. Fourthly, the biggest challenge in the EU is not to prove the benefits of vaccines, because we know them, but to strengthen the trust both with the public and with the medical profession that vaccines are good for you. In order to achieve this, more transparent and science-based communication is needed, and this is an area where ECDC and WHO must work closely together. We also need to learn more about which vaccine messages work and which don't. Finally, according to medical historians, measles appeared in Europe around AD 500. It is an anachronism that 1600 years later, and half a century after the invention of an efficacious vaccine, this disease should still circulate among our children. We know how to stop it. Now all that remains is to do it. Thank you.
On that very eloquent note, I'd like to close the launch at this time and thank all the representatives, and a special thank you to Her Royal Highness Crown Princess Mathilde of Belgium for all of the wonderful statements and support that's occurring today. We will now take a 5-minute break to allow for coffee and tea, which are served in the back, and we'll start with the second session on the round table. Thank you again very much.